We really appreciate your support and think this really promises to be very eye-opening. And of course, thank you to Captain Paul for being with us tonight. And we know you have a lot of stories to tell, so we're really excited. I have a few questions, but I know you have your story that you brought for us, and we're just printing out a few more. Do you want to bring it on? All right, so I'll start us off with this, okay? Captain Paul Hurlston, Historic Voyage. The special-built heavy lift ship MV Inagua Sound was built at Livingston Shipyard, Orange, Texas, for the West Indian Line of West Palm Beach, Florida, in 1969. The vessel was designed to transport heavy equipment and was a type of landing craft with both bow and stern ramp. I'm going to have to keep referring to you. In February 1974, she was chartered to lift a nuclear reactor from Chattanooga, Tennessee to Richland, Washington for the Atomic Energy Commission. Final destination, AEC's Hanford Reservation in Richland, Washington. The Inagua Sound sailed from New Orleans in early February 1974 up the Mississippi, Ohio, and Tennessee rivers, commanded by Captain Paul A. Hurlston of Grand Cayman. She arrived at Combustion Engineering Dock in Chattanooga, Tennessee, 1 week after leaving New Orleans. This was an historic voyage for which the U.S. Senate waived the Jones Act to allow this foreign flagship with a foreign crew to carry this cargo. It was the first time since 1929 that a foreign ship loaded cargo in one U.S. port and discharged the same in another U.S. port. The reason for this was that there was no ship flying the U.S. flag at that time which could do the job. The crew list had to be submitted to Washington, D.C. 1 month in advance so that it could be checked by the FBI. No crew member was allowed to sign on or off the ship after the list was approved by the FBI. Captain Paul recalls having a naval officer breathing down his back for about 4 days, quizzing him on every conceivable scenario that could happen. The officer went through the ship with a fine-tooth comb, but our Caymanian captain, his ship and crew came through with flying colors. There were 3 river pilots, Captain Joe Scott, Captain Gale, and Captain Blankenship, up and down the rivers. The voyage from New Orleans to Chattanooga took 7 days. The ship was in Chattanooga for 26 days awaiting the cargo. This experience is one Captain Paul says he will never forget. He and his chief officer were required to attend meetings every other day and were briefed on the value of this cargo. They were shown plans from conception to the completion of this project. On arrival in Chattanooga, they were treated like royalty, and he was told that the cargo was worth over $24 million and the technology was new. A meeting was held the day before the cargo was to be loaded, and everything seemed to be in order. However, the reactor had to be transported on a flatbed by rail from the site where it was built to the dock. When it arrived, it was positioned in the wrong direction, so loading was delayed. Captain Paul was requested to turn the ship around, but refused. The river was high and the water swift, and he realized that this could have been a disaster. The phone lines between Chattanooga and Washington, D.C. were hot for 3 days. On the 4th day, the decision was taken to ship the cargo as it was. Having been loaded, the ship sailed the latter part of March. The mast and rigging, which had to be removed so the ship could pass under some of the bridges, had to be reinstalled upon return to New Orleans. This having been completed, the ship headed down the Mississippi River. The river pilot disembarked at Pilot Town, where the bar pilot took the ship to SW Pass and disembarked.
Southwest Pass.
Southwest Pass. Such a rookie. From this point on, Captain Paul was on his own. They had a safe trip to the Panama Canal and docked at Cristobal to receive bunker, spending 1 night there, during which time the crew got a little shore leave. The following day, they were scheduled to commence transiting the canal at 1400 hours. The canal point boarded an hour early. Canal boarded an hour early and indicated his desire to eat some ship food, which Captain Paul had his cook prepare. After some delay, they got underway, and Captain wrote the pilot's name in the ship's log as required by law. It took about 8 hours to transit the canal, and just before the last lock, the pilot, who seemed strangely familiar to the captain, made some reference to the national bulk carriers. Upon inquiring if he had ever worked on the SS or Regent, and getting a positive response, Captain Paul realized that this man had been the chief mate and he the fourth mate on this vessel back in 1956. About this time, pilot Captain Thomas Wright was due to disembark at Balboa, so this left the two former shipmates with many unanswered questions. Small world. The ship departed Balboa headed for the Columbia River, Portland, Oregon. The weather was good for this leg of the journey, also one of the few times that Cape Disappointment was smooth. Upon arrival, the pilot boarded and the ship headed up the river, docking at Longview, Washington, about 300 hours the next morning. Captain Paul still remembers the relief he felt, having completed this voyage without incident. The discharging was done by Rigger International, who had erected a special crane just for that job. The ship was to have traveled to Hansford, Washington, but the captain was advised that politics had been involved, so the cargo was delivered to Longview. A man from the U.S. government, very businesslike but friendly, made the voyage with Captain Paul from Chattanooga to Longview. His name was Robert Bombat. Other Caymanian seamen have had outstanding and illustrious careers. This certainly must rank way up there. It is men like Captain Paul A. Hurlston to whom this country owes a huge and whom we and future generations should never forget. Okay. I think that's a good way to start us off, right? What really interests me by that story is, you running into this person that you had known before and thinking, oh, this person looks so familiar, but I just can't put my finger on it, and realizing you had this history together. Yeah, so I'm really interested by some of the characters you must have met along the way.
Yeah, well, he was really, he was a very nice man, but it's the last place in the world I ever expected to see him in the Panama Canal, because he was a little nervous. She was all fidgety and he was nervous, and I remember what really triggered my memory. His hair came down in a funny shape in the back here, because it was one of the barbers aboard the ship said, "I hope I never ask me to trim it." And I seen the man, I wrote his name down, but it still didn't, I was still thinking, I know this man, I've seen this man somewhere. But if he hadn't triggered my, brought up that question about national bulk carriers, I would never realize it was the same guy.
Right.
Mr. Wright. I said, because the Panama Canal is a very, I don't know now, because it's been many years I have been there, but that was a very strategic and very official port. And you didn't need any nervous or people to fool around there. So I didn't.
You gotta know what you're doing.
Yes, you have to know.
For sure.
But,
and then, of course, you talk in there about them suggesting that you go on a certain day, but you could see that it was going to be dangerous if you did that. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your experience, because I know you worked on navigation a lot.
oh,
So your experience with kind of navigation and weather, I guess.
Yeah, well, going back to navigation, I started, from the time I was about 12 years old, I studied navigation, because in Cayman those days there was no employment. Everybody went to sea to earn a living, very little. So it's where they call Smith Cove now is that's Smith Barcadere. I don't like anybody calling it Smith Cove.
Right.
I was born and raised right alongside of that. Was four of us guys from South. I had the bowditch. One guy had an old octant, and the other one had a watch.
Right.
And we spent many hours down there, because it was no radio to get at the time, to correct the time, because time is very important in navigation, because 4 seconds can throw you at 1 mile, a mile in the air, 4 seconds, so you have to be accurate. And we had no way of getting so from time the sun started to move, after the meridian go down, we was there taking observations, and that's how we corrected the time to get the right time, because longitude is the distance from the Greenwich meridian expressed in hours, minutes, and seconds. So I don't know if I could convert all that now. That's so many years ago. But That's the way we did it in those days.
Right.
It was
And you say you started when you were as young as 12. So you
That-
had been training for
yes,
the
'cause-
profession that you would be in for a long time.
Of course. Every one of us, young men, young boy, we had a role model. Somebody, cause my brother was and my grandfather. Well, all my family was all seafaring people. My grandfather, my uncles, and my brothers, and all that. So,
Did you ever have imagined that you would be the only foreign person to sail something?
No,
that
no,
important?
no, no. That's never crossed my mind.
Never dreamed.
I never dreamed, because that's unheard of. I mean, it was unheard of. I never, in my, I had many more, but that was really one of, I guess, one of the
One of the highlights.
the highlights. But I spent 41 and a half years in sea. I started to sail 15 years of age. That was my.
And you must have started on smaller boats, of course.
Yes, I've been on. I started on the fruit ships, the fruit ships that were sailing out of Florida to Central America, bringing back bananas in those days. There was no refrigeration those days either. They used to load. I think the little ship I was on we used to load 16,000 stems. There were stems of bananas.
In
There
big
was,
bunches,
they
right?
used to
Okay.
load them in. And if you arrive with 25% ripe, that was a good cargo. Yeah.
There's a lot along the way.
Oh,
Yeah.
then we had to clean the rotten bananas was down, and you go to your ankle with rotten bananas. For years I couldn't touch a banana. But and we were, well, I was at that time I was 16 years of age, and earning $80 a month. Boy, that was big money.
Yeah.
That was big money, and but doing a man's work. So I came up from the old saying, from the deck boy right up to as high as I could go.
Right.
I pulled myself up by my own bootstraps. So I always tell people, say, I know a lot of people is sick of hearing me repeating this, but any time someone came aboard my ship on deck, I know nothing much about in your room. Within 24 hours, I knew whether he knew his job, because I did it.
Right.
So,
right,
but
right.
if you don't know what you do, if you don't know your job, people can tell you anything because you don't know. That's some of what's happening here in our island today.
So I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about, if you remember the first day that you left Cayman for a long period of time.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was the 10th day of January 1947.
Wow.
The next day was my birthday.
Oh, there you go.
And
That's a good way to remember.
I went to Tampa, Florida, and it was a little motorboat, the Antares. Antares. There's 20. We signed on. Oh, that's we were passengers. We went. It was 8 of us, I think. I think it was. But we were signed on the crew list. But we were passed. We had to pay our transportation.
Oh, okay.
But you
Pay
couldn't
by
go as a
labor,
passenger.
right.
So we went into Tampa, and if you was fortunate to get a ship, then they would sign you off. You'd get off and move. And the Antares was registered in Cayman under the British flag.
Okay.
So you had to go to the British consulate to.
Oh, okay.
And I was on the age, but I was so lucky today that the captain took me up there to because my brother was in Tampa on a little ship on the Honduran flag, so he was going to take me off along with him. But to get released from this one but the day I went up there, the consulate herself, he was in a meeting, so his secretary, she asked no questions, she said, you know.
Right.
So I've been lucky all my life.
Right. And you say that your brother was in Tampa as well, and a lot of your family, of course, had been away at sea.
Oh yeah, oh yes, yeah. Oh. And that voyage, that trip, that's 4.5 years before I returned to Cayman.
Wow. I was imagining a few months.
4.5 years.
years. That's a really long time.
And I'm going to drop this little one in. I went halfway around the world before I went to East Dam.
Well, I always tell people that I spent a number of years in school in Canada, and I just went to Little Cayman like a few months ago. So I mean, it's a little bit less of a comparison.
It's only in the last 7-8 years that I've had to give it back. You know?
Yeah. It's funny, you can go hundreds and hundreds of miles away, and you don't even see your own back doorstep. So I wonder then, all of the time that you spent away at sea, how did you kind of stay in touch with your own culture and your own heritage, being away for that long?
Oh, well, most of the ships was it's a lot of Cayman crew.
Right.
Well, I sailed one ship I was on. We had it was 47 crew. We had 27 different nationalities.
Mm.
So you learn to live and get on with people.
Yeah. And I guess it also teaches you a lot about yourself when you're interacting with people from different cultures as well, right?
Oh, as I say, I didn't get very much schooling, but I got a lot of experience and educated with traveling around with other people. I was observed everywhere I went. I observed things to see how things were done, how they were. So it was a good life, and it was some bad days. That ocean can get out, can get angry. I'm telling you. I've been on fire. I've been shipwrecked, fire. I've been in collision, 2 ships. I've been in storms, and I've been aground. So I went through it.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, because I'd heard before about the story that you witnessed the Comayagua sinking.
Yeah.
And I think
I was in school.
I'm sure that I don't have the date, but you were about 8 or 9 years old when that happened.
I was
10. Right. So I had heard the story that you had witnessed that.
Well,
but
what
the
scene, we heard the explosion, and then when we went out on the beach, we seen the ball of fire and the big smoke.
Right.
Because she was about 10 miles or more off the shore.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That was a merchant ship being sunk by a German.
Second World War.
United for Company ship.
Southwest coast
I met some of the crew members of her many years later. A guy from Honduras, a couple, Evans couple. Oh yes.
You told me an interesting story about your brother and your uncle during World War II when they ended up on a vessel.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because you must have known a lot of people that actually went away to war as well.
Oh,
That's kind of a risky story.
Oh, that's that. Huh?
John and Carl?
That was Dell. That it was a German gentleman. I call him a gentleman. Came here sometime in the 30s, and he started a business. And he got married. He married here too. He has a son. He was buying sponge and anything, but that was just a cover-up. His mission was to refuel the German submarines. That was all planned. So this tanker came here by the name of the Equator. I can't remember what I ate yesterday, but I can tell you several years ago. And my uncle, where is she? Sybil.
Yeah.
Her uncle and my brother, a guy by the name of Macpherson Solomon, and the German's brother-in-law, J.D. Bawden, they went on this ship because my uncle was an expert around in the Nicaraguan coast. They were going out there to fish for sharks and turtles and all that. So he tells me, and also my brother, that they went out to some of these. They don't know where, because they was confined below after they didn't know where they were at. They were confined below. But they believed they were on some of those uninhabited keys that they put lube oil or something, because it was the ship was a tanker. They said one dish was listed on one side, and so they know they should have pumped out cargo.
Okay.
But they were preparing for this U-boat operation in the Caribbean, because diesel oil, diesel engines have to have lube oil, and lube oil can be contaminated very quickly. Diesel oil, you can drain the water off of that, but not so. They knew all that, but because in I don't remember what year he came here. It was some in the mid-30s or something like that. But Cayman was really the place at time forgotten about a German to come to Cayman in those days. I mean, but he had money. Nobody asked any question. Oh, he had money. They were just falling over him, and so, and anyhow, they must have been out for 2 months or something like that, and they must have completed their mission. Then they went to Panama, to Cristobal, to go through the Panama Canal. So my uncle Carl Bush, he seen someone on the canal, working on the canal, that he knew because he'd been around all his life, and he got word to the British consul that was Cayman on board the ship. So the authorities denied her transit. They would not let her go through the canal.
Okay.
So they came back in the Caribbean and went back to the Mosquito Keys and put them ashore. But at those times, nobody thought anything about it. He had money because it wasn't anyone in Cayman. They didn't ask any questions.
Well, I love that you mentioned, all the different family members, and I think there's something in the water in your family because you have so many famous family members. I mean, yourself, Miss Sybil, Miss Lassie, and of course, even Miss Consuelo is very famous in Cayman. So you guys have something. There's something in that blood. I don't know what it is, but.
The people of my generation is a lot different from what we have today, because we never knew anything about. The only time you lock a house unless to keep the mosquitoes out.
Yeah.
You leave the door open. Everybody, people was, and about worth ethics. So if someone offered you a job, you didn't ask them how much they were to pay. You asked what time you want me to start.
Right.
You figured you get something, but
It's hard work. Hard work.
It's not, and it was a shake hand. That was a contract.
Right.
that was a contract, and you shake hands. Anything we agreed on, it didn't need. There was no paper because half the people couldn't read and write anyhow.
Yeah, that's interesting because there's such community spirit and trust between people. You had such a tight knit community, and in some ways, South Sound still feels like that to me, at least. maybe not as much. Maybe not to the same extent.
Oh well. I was born and raised there, and I wouldn't go and leave that for no other part of the island or no part of the world. That's my best friend. She's a couple of weeks older than I, a couple of months older than I. We grew up together.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, next door.
Well, you need to tell us some stories of, I don't know, the games you guys used to play or
Her mother used to make the best candy, peppermint candy. Oh, that was a treat. The evening that she was going to make those
Yeah.
candies.
Was it you who bought the oil in that day, that evening?
I believe it was. But a little bit too much. But
All the gas for the rest of our lives.
You still haven't lived it down yet, eh?
they were good old days. We didn't realize it at that time, but they were good days.
But we did enjoy it.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
You need to tell them about them Skittles and Santa.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, that was our national defense, the mosquitoes. Nobody wanted to come to Cayman because of you could grab them. They used to stifle the cattle.
cows,
Yeah,
cattle,
yeah,
yeah.
and then they breed them. Because her mother used to raise cattle. And I was a cowboy. I used to help pen the calves. And then we
And
had
I
to.
stuck that fire when Johnny, my brother, my older brother, came home. One brother, he was the oldest child, and when he came home from his roamings around 11 o'clock in the night, he had to stoke up the fire and keep it going till morning.
That's crazy. For me, the mosquitoes are already bad enough as it is. I can't imagine it being any worse.
But there was a community spirit there, Paul,
Oh
that is sadly lacking now.
Yeah.
And you see,
Yeah.
we had no theater, no movie, everything centered around the church.
Yeah.
There's a little building up there. It's in the same location, but that's where everything was centered around that.
And what about storytelling? Did you guys ever kind of sit in the backyard and then someone would tell you guys stories as kids?
No, oh yeah, we used to do that. But you know, it was 2 or 3 poets in my day, but all their writings had been destroyed. But it's a guy he's dead now, but he has children. His name was Edward Bawden, but his father was Bassey. Everybody knew him by Ed Bassey. He was a cobbler. He saved more souls than anybody else in Cayman. Because
I love a good pun. I love a good pun.
because during the war, it was pure leather. Shoes those days were made out of leather.
Right.
And during the war, things was hard to get. But he was an artist. Oh man, he could take an old pair of shoes and turn that. And nobody remembers him. Oh, it's a shame. Yeah. No. And he and another guy, friend here, cousin too, they were poets. They used to write songs and poems. Of course, they wrote she's dead now, she won't know anything about Miss Lassie. They wrote a lot on her father, who was my granduncle.
Right.
He was a...
That's unfortunate. I wish I would have been able to have read some of her stuff.
No, she didn't.
She didn't write it,
These
it was-
guys used to write.
Oh, they would write
Because
about her father.
anything you say, they would run. It's like the Trinidadians with the calypso. Anything you say, they could
They
make us.
turn it
They turn it
into-
up.
turn it
So
into
they
something.
that was the and that.
Paul, who was it? Made pearls? Who made the pearls?
Yeah, Uncle Dick. That's Miss Lassie's father.
I remember hearing about that.
Oh,
I remember hearing about that. He would
Yeah.
make pearls out of conch shells.
Well, pink conch shells. They used to and read and they going to squeal. Richard was industrial as hell, making pearls out of pink conch shell. When they put them under the magnifying glass, they found out it wasn't real, and old Dick began to squeal. I can remember a little bit of each one, but that's so long ago. But it's her cousin, he lived in, wrote some of those, and his brother who collected them and had them preserved, when he died, his brother came back from New York and threw them all away. Oh man, that was That was the collection.
And Paul, you remember somebody wrote a poem about all day, all night, Mary Ann? And they used to dance to that.
Yeah.
The music,
That-
all day, all night with Mary Ann. Down by the seaside, shipping some-
That's a Trinidad. That's a Trinidad.
So who's
Yeah.
Mary Ann? What am I
That-
missing? Story.
That's from Trinidad.
Oh, it's Trinidadian too.
Trinidad
Okay,
too.
okay.
But but our going back to our sea life, that was it was rough because it was the Simboko, which was built, I don't know, sometime in the 20s. That was the first motorboat in Cayman. Everything was sailing vessels. And the first scheduled meal service between Cayman and Jamaica was the schooner Fulmar.
Fulmar.
Fulmar. And that was about every 6 weeks or something like that.
Wow. It's so funny because
Martin Scope. That's still Paul's father,
No, that's Miss Mona.
Mona Marin. father.
we need to make some family trees from this. That's what we need to do so we can really track
you
it
see, excuse me for butting in, but
no.
if you don't know the history of these things, the stories don't make you don't make sense. But you have
Just bring a time all together.
because it was let's see how that one goes. I have a record. My old uncle. He was he was Captain Carl Bush. He was a character. He knew. That's where I got most of my tales from. Because I kept company with him every evening, and he used to like to sing. I got one. It was a lady from Newland or somewhere. She was the most beautiful woman that ever lived in Cayman, and a guy from Cuba, Bob Range, and he was black, but he had dark skin, and they fell in love, but they had to go to Jamaica to get married because we couldn't get married here in Cayman.
Why was that?
Why? Because it was prejudice.
Okay.
And
It's a good sign that we're asking why now, I guess, right?
and let's see if I can remember all this. Mr. Lambert was the big merchant here in Cayman. I don't know whether you heard about him. Fred Lawrence Capt. He was the man that had the grand old house, they call that built.
Oh, okay.
That was his house, but that was Petra. And I'm getting all mixed up in my tale, but I got to tell you this one before I forget it. The first indoor toilet installed in Cayman was in Petra, the grand old house.
Really?
The guy that installed that was an American mechanic, or Ralph Joyce, and he didn't know no more about what he was doing. I did. It took him months. I'm telling you what I know, because my brother was the one who dug the cesspool. I used to be down there at Petra, the old lady down there. I was a little boy, he was around there all the time. And that's a historical place, Petra. So coming back to my story now, this Mr. Lambert, he was a big merchant. He was from Boston, a big rich man. He had stores came out. I guess he was the dart of yesterday. He's the dart of yesterday. He owned everything around. So apparently this. Oh God, I'm getting mixed up on that. This was a school teacher, some European, I don't remember what national, and it was some mixed up with this rich man trying to interfere with his wife. And the rich man came back on his from Jamaica and on the boat, and this man met him on the dock, and he was greeted him. And he had a whip in his right hand, but he offered him his left hand. He gave him a damn good ass. So they put this guy in, of course he was arrested, he was locked in jail, so he wrote this song while he was in jail about the lady was Anna Coe, and the guy was Robert Range. I think he's got some relatives in the North Side probably, but he came from Cuba. But how they had a wreck up in around somewhere on the east end of the island, and this old ship was loaded with all kinds of things. But anything you needed in Cayman those days, and they had a bale of these burlap sacks. So that's what he salvaged, and he got the nickname as Crocus Bob. So this man wrote this song about this. And how they eloped, they went to Jamaica and got married, and he wrote this man in Bruce wrote this song. But you would have to know the history, the need, or to I got it on tape. I have it on tape.
Yeah.
But you would have to
know what he's talking
yeah,
about
you
in
would
the
have
song,
to
you would have to know
to
his
appreciate it. But it's
Miss Peggy, I was gonna ask you if you might know if you might know what ship that is that sunk off of East End. Around when was that?
Oh, that was that would have been sometime in the 1920s or earlier something.
Off East End?
Off East End, yeah, or off the eastern side of
Yes.
that, you said. Maybe
It
not.
was several ships that went aground because there was a where he is it? He's from East End, and yeah, I hope you don't get insulted. Where my Omar is? Where is he? Yeah. Captain Hurlston Conley, he should be go down in history. It should be because he ran several of those old. That's how the people got houses. He ran the ships going to Eastern Caribbean with lumber. He's running ashore.
That's the one off the northeast coast, the Geneva Capt.
Yeah, the Geneva Capt.
Around 1929.
Okay.
Part was inside the reef and so forth. But there's a lot of shipwrecks at East End. I mean,
Yeah.
more than 30, and they date from, probably earlier than the early 1700s, right up till modern, Cuban boats wrecking here. But anyway, so there's old historic ones with ballast. There's ships that were made of wood with iron pieces, iron frames, and then there are the riveted metal hull ships. So we've just got the whole history at East End.
Yeah, the whole collection.
Because we were shut off from the outside more. I mean, nobody knew it. Up to when I was going to started to see it in the 50s, it was 3 months before you would receive a letter.
Wow. It's crazy because nowadays, I mean, social networking, we've got Facebook and Twitter, and everything's so instant,
Not only that, but you know how many sleepless nights I have spent not knowing where I was at, especially down in the Gulf of Mexico, going through the oil rigs, because it's mind-boggling to me today. This little thing, this little GPS, I can tell you where you're going. Because if you didn't see a star, or the sun, or the moon, you never knew where we were. We're dead reckoning guesswork.
When did you first learn to use a sextant, and how does it work?
Oh, as I said, I started using sextant from then I was about 12 years old. But it's a difference in standing on the state of land and being out there when she's rocking and rolling.
If you could explain for some of us who may not know exactly what a sextant is.
A sextant is an instrument that measures the altitude of a heavenly body, sun, moon, stars, or anything. It has an arc, and they got the degrees, minutes on top of it that you adjust it when because you can't measure from the zenith right overhead to the horizon, but you can measure from that to and then that's 90 degrees from up there. You get the difference between. You couldn't measure from there back up there.
Right.
So you measure from the object down to the horizon, then you get that other part.
Okay.
And
In my head, I'm picturing like a navigation version of a protractor or something.
and navigation is is latitude and longitude. Latitude is the distance north or south of the equator. Longitude is the distance east or west of the Greenwich Meridian in England. The Greenwich Meridian is 0 minutes, 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. West, every 15 degrees you travel west, it's a change of time. It's 1 hour. So we're here in Cayman. We're in 87. I don't even remember what it is, but we're 5 hours. Technically 5 hours different. Of course, they got the daylight saving time in England, so it's 6 hours.
Right.
And when you go east of the Greenwich Meridian, you're ahead of. And it's a controversy if people talking about going to daylight saving time, but the people they don't understand it because on ships you do that all the time.
Right.
Every 15, you get used to it. You don't notice it the first morning. You might notice it, but afterward you don't. He's an old seaman, do you don't notice? And it would save so much money if they would do that here because you would not have to change the schedule. Everything would be just the same.
30 years at sea.
30 years. Okay. And you, what kind of boats were you primarily on? Large ships.
Oceanians and tankers.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
9-foot strip I went down home.
Oh, you did?
In 1956.
And where was that headed?
Well, we left here on a chartered flight to go to Miami. Some of the crew, it was a big, some went to Japan, some went to Alabama, and some went to New York.
Okay, and that was actually very soon after the first airfield was built here, because that was built around 1953 or 53, I think. Okay.
Oh, that was.
Yeah. You said you took a chartered flight, right?
Yeah,
Right.
They used to charter us to take
Yeah. What was that like when you have sort of the switch from primarily everything being by boat to all of a sudden
Yeah.
you've got the planes involved?
You know what why I don't travel anymore, so my traveling days are over. Because I want to remember the good old days. You come down from New York, to Miami, Lux or BWI, one of those planes, a taxi, and you run out on the airport waving your bags, just to put on the brakes, put on the ladder, you go. That's what I want to remember. I don't want to jump now.
I know.
The fire pots along the side.
Yes,
No?
I was like the signal for the planes.
No,
Fire
that was
pots, what's that?
To illuminate the landing strip
Oh,
that had the kerosene flares, they call it. But that was good. Now we had no communication, but how people knew when you were coming, I don't know. But they were all at the airport to meet you.
So we were for a couple of hours.
Dreams.
Yeah. Oh, they were happy days, man. And, all our department arrived. There was always somebody there to meet you.
Yeah. I remember even when I was little that the little watching area that we have above the airport. Whenever my parents would fly in, if they had been visiting family or something, they would come in. We used to love to go up there and waving and stuff.
So did you ever carry a conch horn on a big freighter? Your tradition was blowing the conch horn on the old schooners.
Yeah.
Did you ever?
No.
Just
That's where the fishing boats came
fish.
I mean, the dories, the little canoes.
The
that
cat
went
boats and
in,
then
yeah.
cat boats. If they had a queenfish, a kingfish we call them, then you'd blow the conch shell and you know everybody. But they were good. They were bad and good because everybody was poor. Nobody had anything, but everybody was happy and helped one another. And, during the war, things was tough here in Cayman, but we had ration. But we had all the food you could eat because you had seafood. You didn't know what to do with. You had your local vegetables. You grew that and.
Don't forget the breadfruit.
The bread.
I love some breadfruit. I love some breadfruit.
Yeah, and people were. Oh, it was. And after 9 o'clock at night, it was not a police. And it was nowhere to be seen because nobody else was out, so they were at home too. And it. Oh yeah, there were some dapper stories. And it was one old guy around who would relieve you of anything you had. But if you lost it, you know where to go. It's 55. I bought my first car. I came home in 55, and I bought a car. Of course, I couldn't drive. But my friend taught me to drive in 3 days, and then Inspector Watner took me out for a test, and he couldn't drive himself. I got my license.
I don't know. He ever not to drive.
No.
I don't think it is.
I have a little. I don't have it on me. I have a little photo. One Sunday evening in 1956, he was there. My old car, 2-door. I had about 8, 9 people inside of it. We were we was on a drunk down along the 7 Mile Beach, parked in the middle of the road. Not another store. All the cocoa bushes there. I got the pictures of it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Not a.
I remember that.
Your dad was there. Tommy, Danny, Colby, Wacho. All those.
All the crew. So I'll ask you about 2 more things that I can think of off the top of my head, and then I'll kind of throw it out to everyone else. So the first thing I want to ask about is some of the celebratory events that happen around the launching of some of the ships.
Oh, that.
Because I know there was a party after.
Oh, that
right?
was a party. That was a party.
I know you had like kitchen dances.
Everybody that could get in town was here. Right there by the Hard Rock Cafe. That was the Archer Shipyard.
Right.
That's where the gold field was built. The last one I remember being built, that was the Arbutus, I think it was, right there. And that everybody turned out to come because, and not only they to see, but they had to help because it was launched by block and tackle. You had help pulling the rope.
To pull the rope in,
But
yeah.
they had. Oh yeah, that happened. They always had a big pot of stew, Wilts, conch, something else, and a little keg of white rum.
It's just about dinner time. Don't talk to me about this. It's about dinner time.
Everybody was happy.
Right.
Everybody.
Is it true that it took more than a day to launch a ship?
Oh yes, because sometimes 2 or 3 days because. It was, oh yeah, that was all the excitement.
And the ships had been built quite up on land.
It was the way on this side. It had to come across the road.
Paul said it, as Captain Hurlston said, it was a a muscle thing.
Norwegian steam. We call it pulling in the takeouts. And the
sometimes
you.
the rope broke.
Oh yes.
And what you call those things now that held the boat up, called
The cradle.
the cradle, gave away.
Nobody got. And of course, it wouldn't be a fight or two in amongst that. You know what? That was all part of it.
Fight or two, a love story or something.
Yeah, somebody. You know. Well, I don't know if I should say that here, but this I'm going to do it anyhow because it's getting here. This guy that's on the radio all the time talking, it's Jordanian. He is, he gets me aggravated, agitated, because I hope I can meet Dwayne, the host there, and I told him about it before, but I'd like to explain it again, because he do not have the experience. I have seen so many fights, people won't shut their mouth. And he's getting people agitated, somehow going to beat them up.
Okay, so my last question is about something that happened to you, and I think I have the year 1955, and I know it was sort of a pivotal moment in your life, and it was to do with the Daytona. So I wonder if you could kind of share that story with everyone.
Yes, 1955, November 1955. We were chartered by U.S. Gypsum, going to Canada, up the Bay of Fundy, Hansport, Walton, not Walton, Hansport, and can't remember the other days. And then sometimes around to Cape Breton Island, up the Briador Lake to Little Narrows. And it was getting cold and rough. I took in with something around here. I thought I had a heart attack. I went to the Marine Hospital in Staten Island, New York, and they told me I had to get off the ship to test. Because we were only about 8, 10 or 12 hours. Sometime you might spend a night in port. So I said I'd make one more trip. And the next trip I came back I came into Philadelphia. So I paid off the ship in Philadelphia and took the bus to New York. Went back to the Marine Hospital. I was outpatient. They took all kinds of tests. Made me drink all kinds of things, turn you upside down. So the doctor said, after he got rid of all these tests, he said, "Son, I can't find anything wrong with you. So my advice is to keep clear of cheap whiskey and wild meaning." I said, "Doc, I can do without the whiskey." I said, "Good luck." So I went back over I was staying over the Seamen's Institute in New York. I went and grabbed my bags and jumped on the train, Tampa, Florida. Tampa was a major, Miami was nothing in Miami those days. Okay. Tampa was the trading post for Cayman.
Major jumping off point.
Yeah, all the commerce was to Tampa. And I got in Tampa Saturday evening, and those days I couldn't eat in a white restaurant. I had to go up on the colored sections to have something to eat. So I met two guys from West Bay. Now we worked for the same company, Emerson Power and Wallace Banks. We had a couple of beers, and the following Monday, I went and bought my car. Of course, I had to get a car. I went home with the car. And that evening, that night I was going to fly from Miami from Tampa to Miami to catch a plane the next following day. So I met this power up there, and he had a newspaper in his pocket. He said, "Paul, did you see the paper today?" I said, "No." He pulled it out where this Daytona is missing. And my best friend, He was the chief officer, Mr. Farnan, who asked me. His wife was there, and she was pregnant, and along with his sister. He gave me the number, so I called her and told her who I was, and she asked me what I thought of the situation. I told her, I hate to tell you what I think. And that ship sank somewhere off south of Halifax, they believe, with 24 men. I missed her by 7 days.
So there had to have been something happening.
You know, it's we have the old saying in the Seaman says it's a special angel who takes care of drunks and damn fools. Boy, he's been working hard with me. Yeah, that's it. The ship that was 24 men.
Yeah.
And the bad part of it, oh God. After the company found out that she was really, everything was over, they sent a representative down here. There was 2 men from Cayman and the rest some from Honduras, the Bay Islands, some from Trinidad and those islands up there, and made those people sign a release. Gave them $250 and said that was the wages they had come in when everything was settled. That's what they got out of it. But we went to, it was a relative of mine from Honduras was lost there, and his cousin was up there. He knew, got in contact with a lawyer to open a case against them. It took about 4 years but I attended the Southern District Court in New York twice on that matter, and they won the case, got the insurance, but then the lawyers, they started to fight about this, so the farmer still didn't get a pittance. The old sailor boy, we've been getting some hard knocks out of return, you know.
If it's not from nature, it's from something else, right?
Oh yes, some of the stories I can't tell you. It's not airworthy.
Tell us one on one. So I'd like to throw it out to all of you. I've asked all my questions. So if any of you have a question for Captain, please do. Or a story or 2 of your own. Please do, Scott.
I'm just curious. I know that you had a long and distinguished career, and you were the captain of actually some very very large vessels. Can you tell us maybe the top of your career just before you retired, what you were doing, and where you sailed your last voyages?
Well, my last sailing years was around the Caribbean, out of West Palm Beach, all around the East Caribbean islands, all of them. But I sailed all the North Europe, Persian Gulf. I was in Iran when this war started in what you said. No, 78. When they were through I was up there. I loaded some cranes up on the Great Lakes in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. They were building a naval base in the mouth of the Persian Gulf, and that's when the Shah was in control there. And I had these huge cranes, and I discharged them. Sometimes I wonder these business people where their brains are, because they knew this trouble was brewing. It was there, and they had this car was from this big construction company, Brown and Root, and they had a yard, a place not about 3 days away in what the developed little other name there now. They could have sent me there and discharged that, or held it to find out what happened, because that was millions of dollars lost up there. I came back to Gibraltar, I waited there because they said they would probably return. I would have to return back to load them back, but that never did materialize. Too late. So, in my actually, and not only small people make mistakes. Some of us big, educated, big career people, because I am so glad that I'm not on C anymore, because I understand everything is micromanaged from the office. They're telling you what to do, because this disaster with that cruise ship up in Italy, I don't know anything, I don't want to say anything about it. But I will give my opinion on the Exxon Valdez. You remember that disaster? You see, the office, they're trying to run things from the office, because when you're, especially, I don't know nothing about the tankers now, everything is modernized, right? But those old tankers, you're loading them, you're tired. If they would allow you to stay alongside our anchor to get some rest, you would go. But when you're tired, you make mistakes.
Yeah.
But because it have happened to me, some of the people come from the office and you got to entertain them. When you finish, they can go to their hotel and go sleep, but you have to, you have work to do. I'm not saying that's what happened, but it is possible. I know it has happened to me. It has happened to me. I went down to Argentina one time with a load of equipment, heavy equipment for farming. It was a political job. And Pan American Airways was still flying. One of the vice presidents from Pan American was involved in that. A big businessman from Argentina. Somebody else. I stopped in Barbados to take fuel. I took a load of whiskey. Because going to those places, you might leave your paper, but have your whiskey. Whiskey and cigarettes. You can do that. And we went to a little island in the Parana River, and the nearest town was 15 miles. And they had everything all arranged with the official there. But they got a surprise. The big aduana, big custom officer flew up from Buenos Aires. So this project manager came up to me and said, "Captain, we're in trouble." I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well," he said, "we got things aboard this ship that's not on the manifest." I knew exactly what he was talking about. I said, he said, "This man, he wants to examine all." I said, "Give me 15 minutes and have him come up to my office." And by that time I called the steward, and I had a lot of ice, and I had the whiskey and everything. And it just happened at that time you could not get Scotch whiskey in Argentina. Mm-hmm. And he came up there, and of course I can't speak Spanish, I know a few of the bad words. and the agent was interpreting for me, and I had the whiskey, and I'll never forget the Ballantine whiskey up there, and looking at it, I asked him, he would like that. "Oh yes, he would like that." And by 6 o'clock that evening, the two of us were so drunk he didn't know what he came for. And all the car goes off. Oh. And we had the next thing we had after the deck was all the cargoes off, we had a party aboard the ship. The Archbishop, the mayor, all the big shots came down. And I said you couldn't get Scotch whiskey there, and the old Archbishop, he had a whole bottle for himself. He was holding on to that. Oh my God. I had
So we
to.
have a question over here.
I was just going to ask where and what storm was the worst you ever came across at sea?
That's a hard one, because I have had so many. Because 1957, we were coming from the Persian Gulf, going to Montreal, and this north. Well, the captain of the ship I was on, he was a Greek, one of the best Greeks I ever met. And was you on the Patrick Curie?
Yeah.
At that time, they got all mashed up, had to go in the shipyard. The captain, some people try to make a big name for themselves, because it's what you call, coming across from Atlantic or Pacific, is what you call the Great Circle. The Great Circle, the Great Circle is the shortest distance, but something takes you further north, and the ship he was on, they went that route. My captain, we went south of the Azores, so we didn't get, we got, and we were about 150 miles. It was from a German sailing ship, the Palmair. She went down, training ship. She went down and we couldn't make it. We could catch her. We broke a plate in the ship. Those seas were 40, 50 feet high. And you got,
Were you the captain on that voyage?
no, I was the third officer. No, I paid my dues. I stayed back. I was, because every captain I sailed with was a professor. I learned something I should do or I should not do. No, yeah. I had one American, him you had. I was on a tanker with a German. He was second mate and I was third mate. A few years later, he came back. I was still third mate, and on another ship he came on there as captain. And he spoke good enough English. He used to call me Paul. Paul. I got a few little stories to tell about him. In Puerto Rico, we were sailing between Puerto Rico and Venezuela, and every payday we used to go up to send money home, cross the market and all these beautiful vegetables, yams and coconuts and everything there, but they wouldn't buy anything like that. They just wouldn't buy. So the old chief cook was Mr. Green, Percy Green from Cayman Bragg. So I said we used to call him Uncle P. I said, Uncle P, if I was to buy some yams, you'd make a cake for me. He said, sure, I'd make it. And one day, me and the late Keyword Smith, we went ashore and come back with a crocus bag full of yam, coconuts and all that, and the captain, Paul, what is that? I said, yam, yam, what are you doing? I said, make a cake. Cake. That's all right, okay. He was a captain, I mean, we were on good terms. He was, because we sailed this. So I gave it to the chief cook on Sunday morning. Brought this cake on the table. He brought this cake on the captain was sitting sitting there. He put it there. He said, Paul, what is that? I said, that's a cake, sir. A cake? Can I taste it? Can I? He takes his knife and he four cutlet pieces and put in his mouth. He said, Paul, that is good, man. That is good. That is good, man. I said to him.
Never underestimate the power of a good Cayman.
So he got sick on the ship. Had the old man, Captain Ford, came aboard. Now, nobody else in the world might believe anything I said, but I know he did. He trusted me. Oh God, because we had the Greek second mate. I was still third mate. And we had orders, the gyro compass went out. We had no radar, or no, because we had very little aids in navigation. And he was worried about if you going through the lunar passage, going out without a gyro compass. The gyro compass, it gives you the true course. A magnetic compass, it's affected by the magnitude of the Earth or anything you got aboard it. So you could be steering 60 degrees and you're making a 40 course, you know. So, but the gyro is true, it's accurate within. Anyhow, he said to this German, when he was getting off, he told me, said, this is the third mate. He's been on here for ages. He knows all about the ship. If you need to know anything, just ask. Yeah. So he came to me and said, we got to go to Jacksonville. And he just ran another ship ashore. So if I run the ship around, finish. Lord, what would you do? So I told him how I would do it. And we sailed, and he wouldn't sail till I was on duty. And when we got all clear the reefs and everything, he hollered and he stopped his foot. You could hear him a mile away. And from that day on, I couldn't do anything wrong. This steamboat was an old ship. The way you connect the hose, the hose from the shore to the pipelines to go, we call them manifolds. It was three lines, and she had two sets, one forward and one aft. So in Venezuela, and there was 5 berths. Number 1 and number 5, you use the forward manifold, and 2, 3, and 4 you use the after one. So we had orders, and our pipeline was small. They had to put on reducers. It's hard to say reducer, but enlarge it to fit the shore connection. So before arriving, we all found out what berth you were going to, had that all hooked up. So the captain asked me which manifold he would be using. They were going number 3, I think it was. I told him the after one. So put the reducers on the after one, and when we got to the port captain, he came up and said, no, he says, no, I'm not shifting this. This is my third mate told me this is the one. He never told me a lie before. I'm not moving. They had one hell of an argument. But Captain Anderson, he went up to the office and looked over the papers and came back and apologized, tried to apologize to Captain. And then he took a turn. My third mate had never told me a lie, and he refused to move. Oh, he was something else. Oh, Captain Ford. We had some. I had it would take me a week a month to tell you. I've met so many. I had one guy, one captain from Newfoundland, Captain Pink, Frederick H. Pink. You met Captain Pink, little short, little small man. You could hear his mouth, you think it was a giant, couldn't get through that door. And he said, told me, said, I'll take a beer now and then, but I found out he took more than one. He said to me, he said, third, when the ship sails, I have to be on the bridge, I don't care how you get me up there, but and believe me, I had to drag him up there. It was a German, another German, the chief officer, and as soon as we leave port now, everything was, he wanted the officers to come up to his cabin. I was so glad when it was on my watch that I didn't have to participate in that. And they fought the Battle of Britain over. He and this German, that was arguing about war every night. Coming back about going to the central, these places, you gotta have, you can leave your papers behind, but you gotta have cigarettes and whiskey. Because there's officials, they're looking to see how much I'm going to get. They don't care, not watching what they're signing, they're just seeing how much each one going to get. Oh, but in the Caribbean, in the British Caribbean, they're tough. You gotta have every I dot and every T cross, because they'll find you. They'll make you pay more. But they still expect you to give them something too. but the Spaniards, they'll give you a break. They'll give you a break.
I was going to say, I know being the captain of a ship is a very important job, right? Did you enjoy this position? And if so, what was your favorite thing about it, being the captain?
Well, it's prestigious a little bit of it, because you got a little bit more money, but you got a lot of headaches too, because people don't realize how important seamen are, you know. You see, because you go to Foster, you see everything on the shelves, and the cars come in, you don't know what you go through out there. Because regardless of what happened aboard the ship, or the captain's responsible. It's a lot of responsibility. And you shift cargo, you lose cargo, somebody, it's a big, somebody gets hurt, there's responsibility. But, I have been, I always used to tell them my specialty was taking care of knife, cut bullet holes and broken bones. I had to do all that.
But you wouldn't trade it for the world, though? But you wouldn't trade it for the world?
I wouldn't go back out there now. No, they couldn't pay me to go back there. Now it's money out there. When I was there, the money wasn't good. But it's not everybody can do it. It's not everybody can do, because it's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of, because you're responsible for everything, and you will complete 99 successful voyages. You make one mistake, your last one. That's the one everybody remembers for, that bad one. But in the old days, you were allowed, because you didn't have this communication. Because it's a lot of studies, a lot of things you have to learn. You got to ships construction, stability, cargo handling, navigation, first aid, and the laws that each country go to. You got to study that, because they have what you call sailing direction, that you can know what's going on in that country before you better know it, or you can get in a lot of trouble. So it's a lot of stuff. And then, well, I'm told now they don't even have paper charts anymore. They got electronic charts. But you had to correct, that was the second mate's job, to correct the charts. Every week you got to notice the mariners telling you the lighthouses, which lighthouse was not working, which buoy was out of place. So you had to correct the charts to do all that. It's a lot. People don't realize it. And then load cargo. If you're loading cargo for different ports, you got to be sure that you got it in the right place, because the first port of call has got to be the last cargo you load. Otherwise, if you put that down below, you got to take out all that. So it's a lot. And then it's a lot. It is. But that's all I knew. But we all say the salt water gets in your blood. You'll say, "Oh, I'm not going back again. I'm finished with that." You come shore for 2 weeks and I'm ready to go again. Raring to go again.
Got one other question too. I know you're probably one of the most known sea captains in Cayman. But are there any other sea captains from Cayman?
Oh yeah, Captain Miller, Ned Miller, with the late Captain Chisholm, Captain Arlen McCoy, but he's still out there. He's still out there. He's classed in one of he's a mooring master now. He's mooring the tankers out down the Gulf. Well, he goes all over the world. But he's a class, because it's probably only 120 more masters in the world. And he's one of them.
Who's that? What's his name?
Arlen, Hurlston. Yeah, oh, there's plenty. Cayman had plenty of captains. Mr. Hennings here, his father was captain, Captain Thomas Hennings, Captain Chester Parson, oh God, I can't, Captain Vincent Garvin, oh God, John
There was a Captain Eugene.
Thompson.
Yeah.
He was the
Eugene
famous
Thompson.
captain. He was a Disemboco. He was a Disemboco like many years. My Uncle Carl, Bush Uncle Carl, my grandfather was a captain. And,
Captain Ken as well, Ken Johnson.
and all of these fellas. But it is so many. But well, my brother John did it too. But we do not, as the local saying, we don't blow a whistle. Because Captain Chisholm, he died a few years ago. He was port captain for this West India line. He was in the 70s when there was, in 80, he was all over the world, Japan, Russia, Persian Gulf, all that supervising, because we used to take huge vessels down. But when they were, I went to all those, Curacao, Aruba, Hess, Trinidad, all of those, when they were desulfurizing these refineries, when they had to put all this machine. I don't know how many trips to Trinidad, Point-au-Pierre, and Port Hess, St. Croix. Jesus, I was sick of it. When we went to St. Croix, first time we were tied up in the mangrove bush. And now that's a big tank farm. And you hear about the dredging, how that destroys everything. They cut away a whole reef there because there's big ships can go in St. Croix, 100 feet of water alongside the dock. And the last time I went there was more red snappers and lobsters in alongside there. So yeah, those big refineries. I went curious. I had a lot of experience because damaged cargo. And that's another thing. If you got the master's the only one can do that. If you damage cargo, you think you damage cargo, you have to go to a judge or collect a customs and make what you call a note of protest. The agent, nobody, the owners can't do it. The captain is the only one can do that. So, yeah, it's some little perks in it too, you know. You got to go to meet some good people and go to good fancy restaurants and different places like that. But it's a lot of headache. But because one of the bad things is stowaways. People stow in the birds. Because we, here in Cayman, we don't know how good we got it. You go down and I had a guy from St. Lucie, he stowed away twice in a month. He stowed away twice in a month. And they're losers. You got to be careful with the stowaway because he's already a loser. He don't care anymore. But what I did, I used to inform my crew that because by law you're supposed to post on the gang sailing time, what time you're sailing. But I used to put the correct time at the wrong date. If I'm sailing Thursday, I'd put on Friday. I notify my crew that the date, the time is correct, but the date is wrong, because they're not likely to come aboard a day in advance.
So what did you do if they had any stories?
Oh boy, that is something. Well, I had a couple in St. Thomas, and also you have to restrain them, detain them, but then you're not. You can't treat them too harsh. But the thing is, if you have a stove and nobody receive it, will accept him. If you're not going back to that port where he stowed away from, you could have him. I have known ships that had him on board for a year. Yeah, you can't. Nobody wants. And in the United States, when you go in there with a stowaway, you have to. It's a bond. If he gets away, you're going to pay $10,000. So you have to put a guard board there. Oh, it's trouble because they're bad people. Because I said they're all ready to lose. I said they don't care. They don't care. They're tough fella. One time they had one in Corpus Christi, Trinidad, Corpus Christi, Texas, and where you think it was stored, you wouldn't believe that in the officers was a settee in the officers' mess, and 2 of them was inside of that. It was,
It's one of the most creative places to hide.
yes, because they knew what could hear what was going on and everything. They took them and put them down in the little recreation hall, and one of them, he opened the porthole and crawled over the rail and came up. Well, he didn't fall overboard, I don't know. And he wouldn't tell the captain his name or anything. He wouldn't. It was bad. And when we got into Corpus Christi, of course the radio before, well, he'd let her know I had stowaways aboard. The border patrol came aboard. There was one big fella there. It's a big hat. This guy, he took his left hand, he hit him down and chopped him in the back of his leg. He spit out his name then. But the best part of that, now we were not going back to Trinidad. The other ship, the sister ship, was going, so they had to put them on and send them back there as a passenger. And when they got back to Trinidad, they didn't want them either. they got away. Of course, the police and everybody was on the dock waiting to arrest them. But they didn't want it. This guy jumped off and took off.
Well, why don't we pass around some of your photos, Captain? Very kindly brought in some photos. You said this one was from 1970.
74.
74.
That is an atomic job I did for the Atomic Energy Commission. You can pass it around. It's a breeder reactor, a nuclear breeder reactor. See, this is the picture. That's this photographers was taken. That's in your. So I said, this is all documented. It's somewhere about in the archive somewhere.
And these are all pictures that you
I was a
gave copies to the archive.
I see. This is the same one.
Oh right, this is the same one that you got. Yes, it's right this way.
No.
That's the same one, a smaller version.
Captain Paul, is this you in this picture?
That's me.
Okay, just want to make sure.
And what would have been in here?
That's not. That's empty.
Okay.
But that's part of the reactor.
Oh, okay.
And this here is I had to wait 10 days. The seal, the seal that's inside of that. Inside of that. That's the head.
This is it over here?
This is nitrogen.
Okay.
Because they had to purge that to keep all the dampness out of that.
Okay.
this part of it again, it's discharging in a wash. This is the main right to it. See, this should have been the other way.
Oh, okay. Back around.
That was Captain Joe Scott. He had part of a license. He could go all over and he was a joker. Oh man!
And he was Cayman.
No. He's American.
Okay.
But he was retired, and they had him take the ship up there from he could go all over the inland water of the United States, and they flew him back down to New Orleans to wait till it was ready to come back. But he decided he wasn't coming because I had a load of gin aboard the ship. He came back up and stayed aboard that old broke up thing, and they wanted to put in the best hotel that was up there, but he wouldn't stay.
Sometimes you gotta stay with your gin.
Oh, he was Captain Joe. Oh, he was a character. And this is now on the flat barge in Longview, Washington. They're going to take it up inland to the.
Okay, so you load it off the ship
Yeah,
onto the barge and then you take it on.
yeah. This is the crane that lifted the Columbia Giant.
Thank you so much for bringing all these photos. It's really good.
And that's yours truly.
And you have that's a camera too?
Oh yeah.
So you took most of these pictures yourself?
Yeah. And that's my port captain, a Dean. Well, it's nice to talk about it now, but boy, with a lot of pressure. That was a lot of pressure that you got.
But it all paid off.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Good experience.
If we just kind of compile
So
the
Captain,
pictures.
how many years did you save this?
41 and a half. Started at 15.
15.
Musketaquid, no catching turn. I never sailed a cruise ship. That's about the only one. And I don't want to. Tankers, bulk carriers, heavy lift, containers, fruit ship.
Just about anything you can imagine.
Yeah. Speaking about Captain McCoy, his first command, I was chief officer with him. We used to load in Trinidad and go to all these islands up there, just a few drops there. And in Tortola is all built up now, but when we used to go there, it was someone had an outside toilet with a light bulb on it. That's what he used to go in the night time. we used to go down in Kourou, French Guiana, where the missile base is down there. I'll never forget one evening, this photographer, wanted to get a picture of me. I said, "You're going to mess up your camera, you know." Oh, and he kept backing off. He fell and jumped all in the water out the side.
Well, I want to say a big thank you to you, Captain Paul, for coming and sharing not only the stories but the pictures as well. And we really are so grateful to you, and I think you're a very important member of our
I
society.
hope I didn't.
Don't say more. I hope you weren't going to say that you bored us. Not even at all in the slightest. We're very, very happy that you could join us today, and thank you all for coming as well to listen. And we have some refreshments out in the courtyard, so please help yourselves. And of course, you can all know about the chat, about everything we've heard tonight. So, a big thank you.